Hello to the chicos and the chicas. Welcome back to the Coach Reacts. It's been a long time since the last episode, and I apologize for that. I know that a lot of people have been eagerly waiting for the next episode. All I have to say about this is the fact that no other video type or topic have I ever come with in my YouTube life that took so much time than the Coach Reacts. Virtually to get a video, out there for you takes at least an hour and a half, but probably even more to prepare, which is obviously very demanding. I'm trying my best, but sometimes, as I said, it takes a while to get a video done. Now, let's move on with it rather quickly. Today on the menu is DrScull. He has been probably very eagerly waiting for this video as he submitted this game to me ages ago. For those of you who happen to not know DrScull, he is a chess podcaster, as you can see on the screen. The Chess Journeys is the name of his podcast, so please go ahead and check it out. I'll put a link down below in the description. And because of the layout that he used, we unfortunately will have no access to the time at all during the game, and we also don't know the ratings of the players, so I'm telling you that this is chess.com and this is mid 1700s as far as the rating is concerned, and as far as the time on the clocks is concerned, DrScull is going to be way behind on the clock throughout the entire game, and in fact in severe time trouble in the very end, and I will say a couple of words about that when we get there. Now, as per usual, let's get started. Actually, before we get into that, the opening, as you can see, is a symmetrical Grünfeld, and we join the fray after White's sixth move, so let's go.
Have to assume my opponent will castle. They do. And now we're going to play. So I'm not really comfortable in this position. C4 seems like sort of the most obvious move. Contest the center, contest that D5 pawn. If I play C4... they take on C4.
Okay, I need to stop him there. So there was something very interesting said, and that I found very strange. He said that he's not feeling comfortable in this position. Now, he plays G3 structures and Catalans all the time. So I happen to know that. And so he should feel familiar with the structure, and in fact he should feel to some degree comfortable with it because he supposedly knows it. But my main point here is that, call me harsh, wouldn't be the first time. If you are a 1750 chess.com player and you are a d4 player, I think you are on a level where you should have at least some level of theory at hand when you are playing against one of the most common responses against d4, which is the Grünfeld. And I also happen to know that DrScull loves Karpov, probably the reason why he plays the G3 variations and the Catalan as well. So he could here pick a favorite Karpov game to have it as an anchor game, something that I've spoken about in previous videos, and there's another one that is coming up on that topic. And then that would allow him to be much more in the comfort zone, even if he doesn't know perfectly well the way how this opening is meant to be played, which of course is C4, which we are going to see on the board very, very soon. We're going to take a quick jump here, and we'll go all the way to here.
Figure out, are they going to move the knight and attack this pawn a second time?
So at this point, Kevin, DrScull, is pondering about how to regain the pawn, and the most topical move and the most commonly used one is knight a3. So allow me now to very, very quickly jump to my board. Here we go. Wrong layout. Ta-da. There we go. And we will go to C4 DC. And knight a3 is the most frequently played move here. The reason behind putting the knight on a3 is because we want to also deny b5. And that's the reason why it's not knight d2. Now, I dare say that this is such a rarity that we regain the pawn with knight a3. That happens not too often in any kind of Queen's Gambit scenarios where the c4 pawn is sacked, so that once you see it, it's extremely difficult to forget it. So that's a good way to engrave it in your memory. And then black usually disallows knight c4 and plays c3, somewhat ruining the white's pawn chain, and then playing c5. And once again, if you go through the Masters database, you will find a myriad of Karpov games for this. Now instead, our game takes a very sharp turn, because we play queen c2.
If I go here, I certainly don't want that to collapse. I mean, I can always push e3 to defend it, as long as I have time.
Definitely no e3. If you wanted to defend the pawn on d4 after a supposed queen c2 and whatever attacks at d4, it would much more likely to be rook d1, but let's move on.
I think this is fine. Queen to c2. If my opponent goes here to defend it, I think then maybe I bring the knight to here. So I think this is fine.
Okay, so that was fairly okay. We took a fair bit of time to do so, but I think that Kevin here is trying to please us, the viewers, and me by speaking out all of his thoughts, and actually that is what's going to land him in a quite unpleasant time trouble, in fact, but more on that when we get there. All right, let's go to about 640, where the next interesting point comes. Actually, clearly it already has come, so let's go a bit back. Yeah.
If this knight goes here, okay, so it did take there. That really surprises me.
Okay, as soon as you say it really surprises me, I really like to attach to that some kind of a value. Was it a pleasant surprise or an unpleasant surprise? Are we happy? Are we upset? Because that immediately sets us up for what kind of responses are we looking for, of course, beyond the obligatory recapture. Now, let's call a spade a spade. This is a shocker. And actually, Kevin later on is going to do that in this talk, so I'll let him do that now.
I mean, I guess there's not really much to think about. We have to take back. But I am trying to figure out why. So they moved their bishop twice to take my knight that has done nothing. They had a pretty good looking bishop there. Like I'm just trying to figure out what the long-term advantage is. Also, now suddenly this pawn is backed up. Like, that just seemed like a terrible last couple moves. And I'm trying to decide, does it seem terrible and that's actually good, or is it actually terrible?
Look, he's really going through the right motions as far as I'm concerned, but I still feel like he's unsure. Like, he's reluctant to call it. It was miserable. It was awful. So call it. It was a really miserable thing, exactly for the reasons that you said. That it developed the bishop to f5, then took a bishop, a knight, excuse me, on b1. That's two moves to take a knight that wasn't developed at all in an opening where you are not meant to trade bishops for knights. So it's just ticking all the boxes of no, 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 and therefore we must evaluate it as it was an absolute shocker. Don't do this, or in this case, because of it has been done against us, we go like, well, thank you very much. Now I'm kilometers ahead.
Something like this vibe. Noticing that this diagonal is really one of the keystones of this position.
This was one of the points where Kevin actually, oopsies, I need to go back here, apologies. This was one of the points where Kevin spent a lot of time on what to do, and I didn't quite like the reasoning of what was in the end happening and what wasn't, but let's listen in for a second just to see clearly what's going on here.
Okay, so I guess it starts with, if I push here, there's nothing. And I obviously can't do this now, it would be hanging. But even if I could do that followed by this, I'm really closing off this bit. Like, what if they just, like, go here, and then I've closed off the bishop myself? Maybe that's not the approach. Perhaps best is just get this bishop out, and then then asking myself, well, where do I want this bishop?
Alright, I have to, absolutely, I must stop this here, even though I didn't intend to initially to respond to this. So here he's bringing up an idea, which is probably the most logical one to do on the board, which is to play for e4, which he claimed that is not doable because it's hanging right now. Perfect. So let's make it happen with rook e1, e4. And that is virtually the absolute best thing you can do. Now, I would like to add 2 comments to this based on what he said here, excuse me. He said that it's blocking his own bishop. That doesn't matter. And the reason why it doesn't matter, and this disregard Kevin's priority system is miswired, is because he really loves his Catalan bishop. You can tell that the Catalan bishop is absolutely the focus of his thinking. But there is a higher ranked authority here at play, if you will, and that is dominating the center. And if your center domination means that it temporarily inconveniences the bishop on g2, then so be it. It's okay, we're still getting way ahead, even if it happens at a small expense of now our bishop is nowhere near as pretty as it used to be. So we cannot discard e4, which dominates the board and grabs the entirety of the center on account of, well, we are having a g2 bishop. It's like, imagine you are playing the King's Indian defense with black, yeah, and then you go like, well, I know that main line is e5 here, but that blocks my bishop, so I don't do that. Well, on that basis, we are never going to do anything in the center. So, unfortunately, in chess, you quite often have to tread on your own toes in one way or another to make progress. And that is just the way it is. Now, he also tried to persuade himself of that being bad by playing black b, something like rook b1. I will just play a silly pass. And then he said b6, c5. Yeah, like, how would that work? Like, first of all, c5 hangs. Secondly, that vacates this entire diagonal to cleaning it up so that if my pawns begin to roll, which they would, by the way, like inevitably, then this would end up in an absolute disaster. I will play a silly for white to just get to this point. First and foremost, it's hanging. Secondly, I can push past, which gains even more space. Third of all, I can just go e5, and now the carnage on this diagonal is just, not to mention e6 here, like, the whole thing is just nonsense. c5 hangs for free. So this really felt to me like he didn't like the idea of e4, and therefore he fabricated a reason to justify why he's not doing that. That was this b6, c5, which, yeah, like I said, chess-wise it made no sense. Let's be honest with ourselves. What part made sense was the blocking the bishop, but once again, you must prioritize, and the priority here is very clearly that a dominating center or a dominant center, at the cost of inconveniencing the bishop a little bit, is, you take that deal any day of the week. What you must understand here, if you want to dig a little bit deeper in this, is that the reason why it's not really a major inconvenience is because these pawns are not fixed. They are mobile, they are fluid, they are good to go forward, which means that this diagonal will be opened up at white's will whenever I want. So I'm still in charge of that bishop and its power. I think that was that. And instead, Kevin actually ended up playing b4, which, by the way, I also like a lot. It's a very logical positional operation to play b5 and try to use the power of the rook-bishop combo on the long diagonal. But we spent an awful lot of time at this point in the game. And that actually cost Kevin quite a bit later on. Big jump is about to come. Let's go to 1140-ish.
On that pawn. Let's do that. Boy, it took a lot of time to get there.
Okay, so here, I know I skipped a little bit, but here our opponent played b5, which we didn't exactly evaluate as a shocker and a half, because it has created a backward pawn, an outpost on c5, and made the entire queenside pawn structure, from black's point of view, completely rigid. So here Kevin was very busy with figuring out where to go without actually thinking about, wow, this has been a huge improvement in my position. And that's definitely not a move that I would have played, although the engine likes it. But then again, the engine just is picking between bad and worse. So an evaluation there would have been quite cool.
I've used so much time. This, by the way, Coach Andres, is why I was very hesitant to do this. Because I know that when I get into this talking mode, I run into time trouble. I'm a lot faster just calculating in my brain than trying to talk it out.
Now I chose to
games
I chose to play this segment of the video because it is very true, and I really feel for him. I know it because I'm a streamer and I play a fair bit on stream, and when I have to talk my thought process, and I'm getting distracted by having to speak and following chat and whatever, my performance drops drastically. And when you have to do it for the first time, or when you are not very experienced with this, it is just a major difficulty. And I was thinking about this last night before I started sitting down and taking notes for this video, that I think it might be a generational thing. Like, I look at the young streamers, like the likes of Danya Hikaru, you know, Ali Reza and all these guys, and they are playing absolute top chess whilst talking, entertaining the crowds, and just fully being their real selves whilst playing chess. And I don't know, but I find myself, for example, and Kevin is also talking about the same effect, that it feels like a distraction. So I really am grateful for these people to expose themselves and their thought process and their chess in this way, despite knowing that it might not be even their personal best.
I always run into intense time trouble. So I really feel like this move is pretty obvious for me, and my opponent has to do something about it. Okay, that seems reasonable. Where's this knight going? It doesn't have anywhere. Wonderful, though this is kind of interesting, but then we would solve that.
So at this point, I must again stop proceedings, because what I am noticing again here is that if I received this move, I would have been shocked, right? Because I go back to d3 and I want to play e4. That's my plan. And knight d5 not only doesn't do anything about e4, but in fact it walks headfirst into it. Like, please hit me hard. This is the message that it sends. And this is why it is very dangerous to have these barriers that I spoke about before in previous videos, or boundaries where you go like, I don't want to play e4 because it blocks my bishop in, because once you put your mind in that mentality, it's very difficult to get out of it. And so now we don't look at the most obvious move, which is by far, you know, and in my opinion, the most logical to go for. The engine wants to play bishop d2, but to my mind, e4 is by far the most logical to kick the knight. And by the way, I'm fully aware of the fact that it's coming to c4, but that's a textbook case of a knight that stands pretty and does absolutely nothing. Like, look at that knight and tell me what it does and how it influences the play as far as, you know, white is concerned, and what white can and can't do because of the restricting effect of the knight. It hits nothing. Empty squares, none of which I want to use. And I'm just going to charge up on the king side. I will play bishop f4, rook e1. It's looking really, really great. So, yeah, that is an issue there when you, once again, set those boundaries for your own thinking, that it's sometimes difficult to step out of them.
Just closed off this diagonal.
Once again, the obsession with the diagonal seems to be the tunnel vision theme of the game.
I think I can put some pressure on the pawn this way. The weird thing is this pawn is so closed off, and then when I move him, I don't think I want him there. There's really not many places to put him, though. Maybe here. I am defending this pawn also, and then allows me to put the rook here. Here immediately. Comes back to there. I push again. That actually seems kind of reasonable.
Actually, hold on a second, Kevin. They're holding a tick. So you are looking at knight f6. Hello? Like, knight f6. That means that our opponent did nothing because they went to and fro. So we played e4 for free, and it's our turn. If that is your calculation or your thinking that they will go back to f6 after an e4, you have absolutely no reason not to play that move out immediately. Because that's 2 free moves. Chess doesn't get better than that, ever. Like, that's an instant go. And then e5 is by no means forced. And I think that's probably the reason why this move didn't happen, because he just looked at e5, which, by the way, is not bad, but I want to really strongly stress that you can do whatever here. You can just continue developing, building, going here, but e5, knight d5, followed by various aggressive moves, h4 in particular, I'd really like. But e6 ideas are going to come to the play as well, with the idea of takes, knight g5, bishop h3, and shredding it apart. But once again, the point is, if in this position after knight d5, if I play e4 and I think knight f6 is best, that makes it a total no-brainer, and you pull the trigger. Wrong layout. This recording is so hard, man. So one more time there. Knight d5, e4, knight f6, and you just go for it. And then you can figure out the rest afterwards, because you just play two super healthy moves, and their position has not changed the slightest bit. Okay, I'm going to move on from here. And once again, we're going to do a sizable jump here. A fair few moves were played out, which I'm going to follow up on the board, but let's listen in first.
I wonder if even I can go here.
Actually, I would like to go a little bit further back here. So let's go from here, because something very curious is about to happen.
Maybe something like here, start piling up on that weakness. Like, that's a pretty big weakness. Okay, now they take. Interesting. What's the difference? Is there one?
So the reason why it says what's the difference in the now they take, because earlier on he already looked at bishop e5, but it wasn't played then, and now it is played.
Okay. I wonder if even I can go here. That looks pretty strong, really restricting that piece, although he can go here now. And in fact, this move looks really strong. I can't go here. Are things actually kind of falling apart all of a sudden?
Alright, so this, in my opinion, this sequence that I just displayed for you is by far the most instructive part of the entire game. So now I'm not going to mess up the layout, and we are going to have a look at on the board, and I will tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying. So bishop takes e5 was played, which in my opinion is an absolute miserable move. Once again, the engine likes to contradict me. It seems to be the trend of today. And we just went with it without batting an eyelid. This is a move I would not even look at to do, simply because it does the following things. After take, it immensely weakens all the dark squares, but in particular ones around the king. 2, it gives up the bishop pair, and we are playing now 2 bishops versus 2 knights, which looks really alarming in any scenario pretty much, but especially here when the diagonals are definitely present, especially for this dark squared bishop to slice and dice. And none of this was taken on board. We were not showing any positive emotions about the fact that our opponent's fianchetto bishop got traded off for a knight of all things. All squares are weak as heck. And then on top of this, we are saying that after a potential knight d7, our position is falling apart. Like, what? Like, which position? How is it falling apart? Like, I can totally afford losing this e5 pawn. Absolutely 100%. And that's not to say I can't defend it. I totally can. Like, queen e4 and that's it, done. It's protected. But, like, first and foremost, as soon as I see knight d7, I'm like, hello, 2 knights piled up. Let's go e4. He takes on e5. Thank you for the diagonal. I will move the queen away. Knight e7. And now I am going to relocate the queen on this diagonal. Bishop incoming on h6. Good luck, Chuck, to survive this absolutely raging attack. Like, the 2 bishops are absolutely vicious. Admittedly, you need time, especially if you are on a lower level of the spectrum, to correctly evaluate this. And I know that to many club level players it looks scary because it's a pawn down. This is typically something that you shouldn't even take into account at all. Like, this position is not going to be decided by the pawn. Ever. Because even if our attack fails, the 2 bishops are so powerful that they would easily hold an extra pawn. No worries whatsoever. But this is not holdable. Like here, the white attack is just going to break through. The dark squares are too weak. It is just too good. But once again, even if that was out of our scope, queen e4. All G. And no problems whatsoever. Okay, back. Actually, I will play it from here because the next part is coming in a bit.
How will I defend that? Okay, he doesn't do that. Need a good square for the queen. This guy's hanging. If I go here and he moves this knight, can attack the queen. He can like there. I would take there. This guy would hang.
Okay, I really, really love the fact that Kevin is cautious and he's calculating. What I don't like is the mentality that to me betrays that he doesn't quite understand the position too well, because after rook d8, he's looking for tactical ideas for black. And I'm like, hello? Black, who is completely undeveloped, is entirely dead on the dark squared color complex, is about to get absolutely Shrek-mated, and we're looking for tactics? Really? So let's investigate that line, shall we? Queen e4, knight f6. I take, you take. I attack the rook, I announce mate in 2. Thanks for coming, see ya. Game over. Like, black has absolutely no rights to think about tactics here. The only thinking that black should do here is that how am I gonna survive the next 5 moves without dying on the dark colored complex? And unfortunately, this was not part of Kevin's thinking at all. At least not outwardly. We didn't hear anything about the dark square bishop being gone. We didn't hear anything about vicious attack. And we most certainly didn't hear stuff like, black has no right for tactical ideas like that. It's bollocks. It's nonsense. And of course, you do want to look at that. I'm not suggesting ignore tactics, but you must be aware of the relative likelihood of who should be ready here to do tactical damage to the other. And this certainly doesn't look like one. Yeah, and as I said, it's a beautiful win, by the way. Queen h4, queen d8, queen h6, and the mate can't be stopped without giving up the rook on d2. Actually, sorry, I was meant to go queen f4 to do it all with tempi. Yeah. So that was a biggie there. Let's just watch how proceedings go. Here I'm going to go another big jump, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, all the way to here.
And how does our opponent hold everything together? It just seems challenging, we'll say that.
Sorry, I forgot to change the settings, so I will go back a bit.
I think it.
Actually, here also we made a funny move, because instead of bishop h6, I think bishop g5 was more accurate.
Okay, he wants to go there. Okay.
So once again, I really want to hear at this point something like, look at my army, man. Like, I have got everybody ready on the king side. Like, this is how the game proceeded. And then of all moves, the opponent moves the only piece that covers some of the dark squares to the other side of the board. So actually after knight b6, I would like to find a point in the game. Right here is about to come. Let's go.
Wow, all the pieces are going away from the king.
Did you hear that? Legend. Did you see the shock? He went like, wow, all the pieces are going away from the king. That is just music to my heart. That's what you need to say, mate. Great stuff. But what comes from that is so let me see how I'm going to now absolutely slaughter your king.
That takes some confidence. Like, we're looking at this. Okay, he wants to go there. Okay.
once again, though, credit to Kevin, he's really struggling for time here. So he's tossing up between moves. He's sort of not calculating lines, but bishop g5 and queen h4 are the most obvious follow-ups, because basically the pattern that we want to play for is simply to chuck a bishop here and a knight here. But I think something very peculiar was said. It's yet to come. It is yet to come, so I will actually have to listen into this. Oh, that will be the juicy part.
Yeah, let's go here and start piling up this attack.
Yeah, so he has the right mentality. Sorry, I forgot to change. So he plays bishop h6. He says, let's pile up the attack. I would have liked to see queen h4 instead, and then potentially dropping the bishop on f6. So it is almost more like engineering than thinking about what to do, because what you want to do here is to have your pieces here and here to get a mate, right? So the only question is, do I want queen here, bishop here? Or do I want queen on f6 and bishop on h6? Both are doable, but to my mind, the only defensive measure appears to be knight d7, so I don't want the queen on f6. So my my attacking pattern looks like bishop g5, bishop f6, queen h6. And that's it. So I slightly, am against bishop h6 as a move, but that's fine. Now, the best part is to come after knight d7. Actually, I want to hear him already here.
Help this knight now is the problem. No, I can still grab that pawn.
Sorry. So we are looking at this position. He's about to queen h4. Let's go again.
What does he do? I go here. Threaten to go there. He goes... I guess he can just develop this knight now is the problem. No, I can still grab that pawn. Oh, and if he develops the knight, I'm going to take his rook. So there's a number of threats here.
I don't exactly know what...
all this stuff happens.
Wait. I don't know what he meant by... if he develops his knight, I will take the rook, because the main purpose of developing the knight is to actually connect the rooks and defend it. So that was a sizable blunder. However, my issue here is that he says, after knight d7, I can grab the pawn. Well, I'll tell you what. No, stuff that pawn. You are not hunting pawns here. You are going on an absolute rampage to checkmate your opponent. Look at our moves that what we have been playing for the last X amount of moves. By the way, the knight b6, knight d5, to and fro was an epic touch, which is begging for mate. So now our opponent again just wasted 2 moves. And here, the thinking is the following, if you are tactically thinking, which it should be because we are on the attack, right? If I get a queen on f6, it's all over. There are 2 obstacles for my queen to get to f6. 1 knight, 2 knights. My job is to eliminate both. So what do? I start calculating. Checks, captures, threats. Garbage checks out, captures, bang, bishop d5. One of them is eliminated. Ed back. e6, because checks, captures, threats. No checks. I had a capture, but that's not attacking. e6 is a threat to take the knight. Takes back, queen e7, threat again. And the game is over. I show you. Take, e6 takes, queen e7, and the mate is unstoppable. That's it. This is your thinking, right? That's how we calculate lines when we feel that there is action ready to go. And we do feel that because our army is fully developed and black is barely hanging on by the skin of their teeth. So what's the other variation? Bishop takes, pawn takes. And now we could go like, big deal, you have nothing. No, I do have a lot. Rook c7, and good luck stopping rook d7, queen f6, and mate. And when I say good luck, what I actually mean is, it's not possible. The game is over. So here, we failed to transition from building the attack to recognizing that this is the time to strike. When the defense is hardly hanging in there, it's hardly together, we can eliminate, to begin with, vitally important defenders, and yet we are instead obsessing with picking off a pawn that is neither here nor there. And in fact, taking the pawn means by definition that black also gets a pawn, which in turn offers a queen trade, which sounds to me like a swear word in this context because we want mate. So this is a never, returning opportunity in this game that we get to eliminate this, and then after rook c7, that's it. I'm more than happy to admit that this is a difficult tactic to see if your brain is not wired to look for vicious violence, but you should be. And actually, this is the greatest takeaway from the game. I'm going to show you on this board rather than in the video what happened in the game, which was quite interesting. So, and by the way, in many ways, this is a typical path and a typical narrative of like 80% of club level games where one side has a very nice position. They fail to recognize the point when it's time to strike. And in the name of safety, we end up in an endgame. So we trade down here and we trade down here. Now, this is completely winning for white. But winning meaning that if black resists the best they can, we are going to play another 20 moves. 25. Considering that Kevin has, at this point, less than 2 minutes on the clock, that's a 50-50 whether we are going to lose or not. So if this is ever done in the name of safety, I'm telling you that it's not the right thing. But since I want to do another video on that, I'm not going to preempt my content for that. And then here the opponent fell apart, lost an exchange, and then Kevin converted in a beautiful mate, which I will show you very quickly. I'm just going to speed through the game. And by the way, kudos to Kevin because he played this part of the game with admirable focus and precision even, considering that many a time he had seconds left on the clock. This was an incremented game, so at every move he got some time back on his clock. But kudos to him because it was not an easy conversion. He went to eat the knight, and then the opponent allowed the exposing of the king. We missed the mate in 2, which was a bit of an ouch. Here f4 followed by rook, here is mate, but nonetheless the mate did come like this. So kudos to DrScull for playing this game and actually winning it despite the numerous difficulties that we've had throughout. There you go. That's the relief. That that move. That move says it all. I'll play that. That is the most ultimate
pretty at the end
chess player move.
But we got there.
Booyah!
There you go, Coach Andres.
Boomski, thank you, dude. Actually, I will give you a boomski. Or not. Boomski! There we go. So, conclusion. How do we improve DrScull's technique? First of all, you need to look up your opening serve because, being out of book literally on move 1 when the main Grimfeld setup is on the board with white is no go. That just doesn't fly. You need to also have there at least one anchor game that you can recall, at least in terms of the basic motifs and ideas, so that even if you are out of book, you have a rough idea about what to play for. Throughout the game, our opponent played moves, and I'm going to go back now to my chessboard, in particular the 2 bishop trades, which we were initially hesitant, in the first case hesitant to evaluate as an absolute horrific positional decision. And in fact, we didn't even bat an eyelid on the second one, whereas in my book, they both were actually decisive moments in the game. So that needed to be evaluated correctly. Another thing is that we constantly omitted e4, simply because our love for the bishop on g2 is too much. That needs to stop because earlier on here these plans playing for rook e1 e4 are by far the absolute best and they need to be respected. Center, man, when I tell you center, you know what to do, and that is a textbook case of grabbing the center. So do that. And last but not least, if you are on a vicious attack, which it was, you spoke the words that we are now rolling with the attack, I think was the wording, then you can't stop. And in fact, you need to see it through. And this is where the exciting thing comes. To be perfectly honest, we actually didn't get to the attack. The attack comes now when we eliminate the defenders and we go in for the kill. This attack is just developing now, and we actually allowed it to die before it could even take off. And that is something that you need to be aware of. This is one of the hardest aspects of chess. And a lot of people say that, yeah, but there is no one to tap my shoulder to tell me that there is the combination. True. But there are myriads of signs on the board that will tell you that if you are actually wired and your mentality is that I need to go for it. Because like I said, we are 2 pieces away from mate, of which one is immediately eliminatable. Capturable. Right? Let's go with that. So what is that if not a sign that there is tactics abound here? If your opponent holds a mate with 2 pieces and you can instantly kill one, and very clearly we have path to the next as well. And your opponent's king is looking like the best quality Swiss cheese I've ever seen in my life. The queen is completely shut out on the other side of the board. So yes, no one should come to you and say, tactics time, but you should be aware and be, part of your own game enough to know that this is potentially one. And you will not always get it right. Nobody does. But 99 times when you are looking for the opportunity because you think that this is it, or 100 out of 100, a large number of times you will strike gold. And this is a golden opportunity to strike gold. Take mate. So that needed to be part of the mentality instead of the backward pawn and then, we will be better in the end game. So that was, ladies and gentlemen, the next episode of The Coach Reacts. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm trying my best to keep up the momentum of this series as well as the rest. But like I said, it's a bit of a challenge every now and then. Thanks a lot for watching. Please don't forget to like, to sub, to comment, and to super like. And I will be back with the next video soon. Thank you.